joining. We are here for symptoms of an effective team, marketing communications team. If you're not here for that, you are now. So lucky you. Excited to be here. I'm Kathryn Landis. So what we're going to be talking about today, what are the symptoms of an ineffective team? Let's review what makes a team effective and how to determine what needs improvement. We're going to create an action plan to problem solve the critical factors that correlate with team success. And then we're going to align on what are some action commitments or things that we've learned that we're willing to take. All right, so what's my street cred? Who is this lady up here talking to you? Well, I own my own executive and team coaching firm called Kathryn Landis Consulting. We help leaders get to the next level of greatness by empowering, inspiring teams, making a lasting positive impact and helping them get to the next level. I'm also an HBR contributor, so you might have seen my article last month around helping to lead Gen Z. That helped because I'm also a professor at NYU, and so I work a lot with Gen Z students, and I work with leaders. They're like, we don't understand Gen Z, so insert article. I'm also a keynote speaker. I've held leadership positions at ADP and American Express. So hopefully I had some value to bring. So I threw some stats up here for you, 81%, 74, and 71%. 81% of people, this was research done by HBR, Harvard Business Review, say their team is not operating anywhere near their full potential. 74% agree that their team isn't accountable for shared goals. And 71% report that team members aren't committed to elevating one another by offering constructive feedback. So for folks in the room, and if you're online, I know there's about 60 people that are joining on the webinar, raise your hand if you'd like to comment. I'm curious, what do you think about this? Are you surprised? Okay, I know my friend Noreen here, she's shaking her head no, obviously not talking about her current team. But Noreen, tell me, what's not surprising about this?
Especially the 71% team members not committing to elevating one another. And thanks to competition, I think the whole concept of collective gain or shared goal is lost. And it's more about me, how am I moving forward, even if that requires sidelining shared goals. And I think it's a product of the environment we've created around competition, right? And I think that's a product of it.
Yeah.
So I'm really not surprised to see the statistics.
So the gentleman right behind you took a big sigh as you were talking. I'm curious, what were you thinking when you took it? Yeah, that's you. What were you thinking?
I think I'm having a little trouble understanding the middle one. So 74% don't agree?
They don't agree.
They don't agree, okay.
Yeah, so meaning their team doesn't have any shared goals. Or they're not held accountable for them. So I can tell you when I worked at a large Fortune 500 company, my team had like business unit level goals. So if the business unit hit their goals, then we meet our team goals, and then I had my individual goals. But everything had to be firing on all cylinders for the business level goals to be hit. So I couldn't directly influence that. It was kind of like a throwaway. What else? Patrick, is there anyone online that may have their hand up that'd like to participate?
Not seeing anyone right now, but we did put a message in the chat that
Okay, perfect.
I do have one more comment.
You need one more comment, please.
So I also feel that because the third pointer over here that says that people are not committed to elevating one another, that results into a team not operating into full potential. So they're interconnected, in my opinion. They are not, they don't like live exclusively. So I can see that connection.
I didn't pay her to say that. She just said this on all. Let me tell you a little bit about an ineffective team. And you might be thinking, hey, I'm a student, I'm not on a team. You have group projects, right? At work, we have teams. It could be a sports team, any team. There was a team that I was working with, a marketing and communications teams that were compiled of multiple acquisitions, different company cultures coming together. Can you imagine senior vice presidents and executive vice presidents jockeying for position and title. It was all exasperated for the fact that they all worked remotely. And so they hadn't actually met each other in person and didn't have the water cooler talk. At this company, there was such a high degree of mistrust that people were afraid to speak up in meetings. People were concerned about making a decision because they didn't want it to be their neck on the decision. And most of all, I mean, one of the VPs, SVPs I talked to actually told me she was afraid about taking a day off and what the implications would be. She felt like she had to be there all the time. They were hiring, for every one person, they were hiring 3 people were leaving. And people on this team just felt awful. I feel awful just telling you about this. I'm curious, what feelings come up for you when you think about the worst team you've ever been a part of? We've all been a part of bad teams. What do you think?
No, it reminds me of a group project I had to do in college.
Can you speak up? She's saying group project in college.
Yes, there was a group project I had to do in college, and the rest of my team members kind of slacked off, and I did all the work. And I think Professor could tell when we were given the presentation that I had done all the work. Decided the day before, let's have a meeting. And I was trying to set that up before so we could be ahead, because also too, you know, we all have different schedules, and so I had to be respectful of your time, and you know, hopefully you can be respectful of mine. But
It's pretty
it was
awful.
very
Yeah.
And then my friend also too, and for her team where she works at, a lot of people are leaving. And so she talks about the particular struggle of being a part of this team and seeing how everyone is leaving and kind of inefficient they are. And
Mhm.
even her being inspired, maybe I also too have to.
Yeah, you're seeing everyone else go. Maybe the grass is greener. What else? Anyone online that'd like to share an experience with an ineffective team? Or the worst team they've been a part of? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I thought the current thing I'm working on is the team is too bad. So I admit me myself as an individual team. So to avoid work with others, but that's not good in the actual work experiences. You have to work with teams, but sometimes team make you feel uncomfortable. So I have to work individually.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody online? Nobody? Okay, that's fair. Just trying to bring in our online folks. We are a hybrid work environment here. So what about the best team? Think about the best team you've ever worked on. How did you show up? What were your team able to accomplish?
I think the best teams that I've worked with, there was a high feeling of belongingness. And that was the drive to work. So nobody asked you to stay late. Nobody asked you to go out of your way. Not that I'm promoting that we should stay late or go out of the way, but then you do it because you're so connected to your team and you count it as your own, right? And I think that belongingness is so much essential if you have to work, if the team has to work at the full potential.
So the woman behind you was nodding as you were talking. I'm curious, what sparked for you? What came up for you when she was saying that?
I think it's you're saying the belonging, like I'm thinking about the ones that had a lot of purpose, but there also was people that did the details too.
Yeah.
Your voice, feel like your voice is being heard, and if you have some concern or feeling, they would actually care about you.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that some of the best teams that I've been on also know how to really define boundaries, because I've been in situations where you do feel very accepted and there's a lot of camaraderie, but there's no boundaries. So you end up working because you want to work, you like the work, it's valued work. And then next thing you know, you're working 4 or 5 hours after time's done, you wake up early, or you want to get a project going a little faster. But I think some of the best ones have an idea of what good boundaries are that foster this like camaraderie, but also can tell you stop, go.
Yeah, exactly. Anyone else, Patrick? Anyone online? Okay, I'm gonna quit asking. Oh, we do have someone online.
We have one hand raised.
All right,
JJ.
JJ.
So, one of the group I'm working with this semester, we prepared before meetings and we always show up on time and we are always efficient for our work. And it makes the work just so easy than it should be.
Exactly. It sounds like you have some norms for the group. You show up on time, you prepare. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. So here's some things you might be hearing from a team that is ineffective, right? No one will step up. There's constant tension between functions. What have you heard from teams that were ineffective that you've been on? Anything not here? Probably, I don't want to be on this team, which some folks alluded to. Anything else?
You have to follow a hierarchy.
Have to follow a hierarchy. That's a good one.
Yeah, and I was made to feel that I'm not somewhere in that hierarchy to make a decision, so I should just shut my mouth. So, yeah.
That's demotivating. Yes.
Yeah, it's like, we don't make change we don't challenge status quo any sort of how, it's just like it be and
Yeah.
keep your
They've
job.
always done it.
Yeah, keep your job and do not change that. And it makes me like disencouraged.
Yeah. Yeah. That seems pretty awful. Sounds pretty awful just hearing that. So there's a bunch of research that came out of Harvard University about what makes an effective team, right? And there's three things that are indications of an effective team. One is that the team's output meets or exceeds expectations of the team's clients. Now, even if you're in marketing and communications, maybe your client is the sales team, right? You may not, your client might not be the end customer. Your client, if you're in accounting, might be, another department within the company. But whatever your output is exceeding or meeting expectations. The team has to be becoming increasingly capable as a unit, meaning the team is working together and they're being able to work better and better together. Also, the personal learning and growth of the team members are being fostered based on what their interactions with the team. So it's actually benefiting them. So this is what the indications of an effective team are. But how do you get there? So according to this research, there's 3 must-haves and there's 3 enablers. So for a must-haves, you need to have a real team. So it can't just be a group of people that report to the same leader. I've been on those teams before, right? The work is not interconnected at all. It is not clear how we work together. It may not even be clear who's on the team and who's not on the team. I worked for organizations where it's so matrixed that you feel like you have multiple bosses, and you're not sure who's on the team. I'll date myself, but it's like that movie Office Space with, all the different bosses. I've said that before in my classes and the students look at me like, what? So I know kind of you're, Gen X or above, you might get that. So that's a real team. Then they have to have a compelling purpose. And someone mentioned that, what is the reason for us to be here? Now, this purpose doesn't have to be sexy, right? Yes, we all want to have this Instagrammable worthy reason why our team exists and what we're going to do, but it has to be compelling in terms of what it means for the organization, what it means for your customers. It has to have that purpose that people can rally around, that your team contributes to uniquely. Where a lot of companies and organizations fall short is they have the organizational purpose and mission, but they don't have the team purpose and mission. And quite frankly, a lot of times people don't know how their work plays a role in the team that then plays a role in the mission of the organization. You also have to have the right people. And what I mean by that is people that have the functional skills and diverse perspectives in a way that can work together to come to better decisions. So at one point of my career, I worked at American Express, as I mentioned, and I heard former CEO Ken Chenault say, you should never have more people making a decision that can share a piece of pizza. A slice, a pizza, right? So no more than 6 or 7 people. If you have these meetings, and especially at companies where the culture is collaborative, it means let's invite someone from every single team and department so that everyone feels included. You're not including the right people or the vital people. It's actually going to make it more difficult to make a decision. I'll stop there. How does this land on you? What are you thinking? I see you nodding.
Can you talk again about the right people?
Yeah, so the right people are people that have the functional skills, but also have diverse perspectives in a way that they're able to collaborate. So, for example, if you have people that, you want people that that will challenge each other, think differently. It's not just groupthink, but also have the collaboration skills to be able to come together and, yes, I have diverse perspectives, but I have the intercultural competence of the collaboration skills to be able to work together. And you want to have a limited number of people. So no more than 6 or 7. Another question? Patrick,
Yeah, Rita on the virtual.
Rita, please.
Oh, yes, I definitely agree with what you're saying because it's nothing like having decisions continually made that affect you and how you work, but there is never an opportunity, or what I shouldn't say never, but there is limited opportunity for you to give your feedback. That's kind of the worst feeling because it's like it's you that it's affecting and it's you that, should be giving some kind of feedback as to how it's going to affect you and others, but it's really frustrating when you're not given that opportunity to do that.
So you want to be able to share how do I contribute to that compelling purpose? And we'll talk a little bit how you can come together with your team to create that. There obviously has to be input from the team leader,
Mhm.
right? But then the team should have opportunities to form that as well. David,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, right.
I remember you from last time.
Great. Why our current company have some issue about the purpose. Different team, of course, they have different purpose. Me marketing doing marketing and sales doing sales. But how we can align all of those to the organizational purpose, organizational mission is mystery for me as well for now. Yeah.
We're going to get to that. It's very common for marketing and sales not to see eye to eye. So I was in sales for 10 years and I was in marketing for about 15 years or so. When I was in sales, marketing never generated enough leads. And I was the reason why I closed all the business. When I was in marketing, I felt like sales didn't close enough leads and, they weren't doing their job more or less with these great leads that my team was generating. So alignment between sales and marketing is pretty common, misalignment. So we'll talk more about that. I'll give you some tools. So then here's some enablers, the 3 enablers, right? One is team norms. So the gentleman here was talking about boundaries. What are the things that we must do and must not do in the way we work together? In his example, they had such a compelling purpose that people were working overtime all the time. That's not healthy either. So coming up with a list of what we must do and not do in the way we work together. Maybe it's the way that you're going to communicate with each other. A supportive context. And I'll get into what these mean more in subsequent slides. What are the resources that you need? What are the big priorities that you have as a team? And what do you need to make it happen? Who's the decision maker for those resources? And what time frame do you need those resources? And then team coaching. And I'm not saying that because I'm a team coach. This can be a team leader, but it's someone who's able to take a look at the team's processes and make interventions when things are not operating as smoothly. So let me dig a little bit deeper. Before I do that, any questions or comments around the enablers? Yes.
Like in order to have the team norms, who should set it, or every team member should set the team norms, or a leader or the higher level management should set the team norms?
That is a great question. I'm going to talk about that. That's great. Right, so listed out the must-haves and the team norms. And I'm going to go a little bit deeper into team norms, supportive context, and compelling purpose. We don't have all the time in the world today, but I want to give you some exercises of things you can do with your team. So, how do you create a compelling purpose? It outlines this team exists to do X, Y, Z, right? And these are the next 3 to 5 core priorities that you want to make, let's say in the next 3 to 6 months, so that there's an impact to the organization or customers. And you can do this different ways depending upon how sophisticated or level maturity is of the team or the group. I've seen team leaders that will jot this down and kind of like have like a straw man, and then they leave it up to their team to create it. Maybe you divide them up into 4 different groups, have them go back each or 3 groups have each take a different part and then think about what the priorities will be or what the impact's gonna be. Maybe you have them do it all together, but the idea is to get buy-in. You're not just telling someone. You don't want these things to be things that are done to the team. You want to do it with the team, right? But as a leader, you have the probably more knowledge and you need to help guide as well. Can anyone think of an opportunity that might be able to use something like this, or have you ever used a compelling purpose or created a compelling purpose like this before for a team? You have, Noreen, please tell.
So in our department retreat last time, we had new leadership. We are all coming, the department is being restructured. We were initially a smaller team. Now we are integrated into a bigger team. So of course, that is uncomforting. That change is not always welcomed by everybody at the first offset. So in this retreat, we had an opportunity to not only define our mission and what our department mission is, but how that ties into the purpose of the school and the larger department. And I think that was such it was one of the catalysts in helping us accept the change and that integration. I think if that we would have not done it at the retreat, if we would have, and we did it exactly like this. We were given a framework, we all came together in our own teams. We wrote our vision statements and mission statements, and then we all integrated it into one big paragraph, all from different teams. And I think if that would have not happened, then this whole integration of our department into a larger department would have been very challenging.
Yeah, exactly. What else? Anyone else like to share? Okay. So here's some team norms. There's a lot of words on here, but I'll help you think about it. So I talked a little bit about those, the 3 to 6, those 3 priorities you make, your team needs to accomplish in the next 3 to 6 months, right? Those are our intended results. These are like the must-win battles. These are the things we must do together, right? And getting very clear on these are our priorities to achieve our compelling purpose. Then have the team think about, well, what are the challenges we might encounter? You know, what might keep us from achieving those priorities? It could be internal, it could be external, but make a list of those things. And then the key is past learnings, right? What have we learned individually and collectively about overcoming those challenges based on our past experiences? So I'll give you an example. Right now, you know, there's some uncertainty in the marketplace, and I've been coaching leaders who are saying, I'm not sure what to tell my teams about what's going on. You know, there's all this nervousness and uncertainty. And you know, one thing you can think about is, well, what has happened in the past? You know, most of these leaders led through a challenging time in 2008. Maybe they led through a challenging time in 2001. This is not the first time that you've seen uncertainty. This is a moment in time. And what have you learned yourself, and what have the organization learned to get over and to move through these challenging times? That's just one example. And then also, what are the norms and workplace practices we need to commit to in order to succeed? So that's maybe where you say, you know, maybe we're not going to work 24/7 because, you know, we're going to get burnt out, or maybe we actually do this with the sales team. If you're a marketing organization, what are our intended results? What are the challenges? What are some past learnings, and what must we do and how we work together? What questions do you have? Yes.
At what time in the planning process of the group coming together do you create this kind of framework? I'm just wondering about the groups where you have new members that are unfamiliar with the organization, if they're just starting, that are really scared or nervous to speak up. And so how do you create that norm that it's okay to share your ideas for them to do this activity successfully?
Yeah, so you have to create something called psychological safety, and there's a lot of articles about that. I would say first you need to create your compelling purpose, right? So without the compelling purpose, you can't create these team norms. But then also, you can do exercises where you can help create the atmosphere for constructive dialogue. So when I think back to that team I was telling you before But the SVPs, they were all jockeying for position and were, battling over titles. They didn't have psychological safety. There was no basis for what was productive and unproductive dialogue at work. So what I did with them is we got in a room, I had them experience and remember what active listening feels like. So actually listening to someone tell a personal story that they're willing to share without thinking about what they wanted to say next. And then we had another exercise and we talked about what is productive and unproductive dialogue at work. And they talked about it. And then they came to agreement to, well, how do we want to show up? What are the actions and the norms we want to create so that we all feel comfortable speaking up at work? I'm simplifying, you know what I'm trying to say, simplifying, thank you. What we did, but the idea is that you're creating agreements amongst people. And if you go to my LinkedIn page, I have a bunch of articles around agreements about what you mutually expect and what's needed to get there. To argue when you have new people on the team, it's a great time to do this because then they can put their input into it. And this can be part of the team norming and forming. I work with large companies, but I also work with startups where, they just gotten their seed money and they need to go fast, right? And so there's a whole, team assimilation and acceleration where you're trying to integrate this new leader and this new team. This is one of the key opportunities to do that. Let's get really clear what we're going to accomplish in the next 3 to 6 months. What can keep us from it? What do we know about it? And how can we work together? That was a great question. What else? Anyone online? Okay, I forgot I told myself I wasn't going to ask, is there anyone online? Okay. So this is the supportive context. So yes, now your compelling purpose. You have your challenges, your learnings, how you're going to work together, but you're probably going to need stuff, right? So it's helpful as a team to say, well, here's the things we're going to need. Maybe it's information. Think about if you're a marketing department, maybe you know who the prospects are. Maybe there's some types of resources you need. You need IT support. Maybe there is some education. What is specifically needed? Who's the decision maker who has the authority to make that decision? How important is it? So prioritize it. And then when is it actually needed? If you can get really clear on this and you can link and label your team's success, which, oh, by the way, is the organization's success, you're exponentially improving the probability of success that you're going to get these resources. Yes.
Yeah, the internal, the support context is important about, I work with sales, I work with IT, we need lots of solutions across our internal company support. So I can use this support context to send it to our department and they figure it out or we figure it out together.
Figure it out together. So something else that I don't talk about specifically in this presentation is either having someone from your team role play and represent IT or represent sales, or ask someone from sales and IT to come to your team meeting and talk about what their priorities are. What are their incentives? What are they working on? And then maybe you can start prioritizing together a little differently. It's very easy to say IT's not doing their job when you don't know actually the other things they have going on or working on. From a sales perspective, I can remember being bombarded with all these messages from different marketing departments about you should sell this product, you should sell this product, send out this marketing campaign. And then they would be like, well, why didn't you do this? Well, I have 97 different initiatives coming at me and I'm being told that I need to drive this number. So another way to get alignment with your cross-functional teams is actually bring them into a meeting and understand what their priorities are and how you can be supportive. Looks like you want to say something.
Yeah, is that kind of thing happening every week or every month or every quarter? You suggest bring everybody together because it costs sometimes to run that kind of.
You can do a couple different ways. I would say, how often are the priorities changing? So I had a conversation with someone a couple weeks ago who's in the business strategy unit and helps think of different strategies, initiatives for the organization. They have a planning meeting every quarter. But then he told me that the sales team, the sales VP, the SVP changes their priorities every month. And so I said, well, why are you meeting as an organization every quarter if the priorities are changing every month? There's a misalignment. So I would think about, well, what is the frequency in which priorities are established? And you don't actually have to have someone from that department. If their time is scarce, you can have someone role play. Someone can be, Joe or, Sally from IT and put their perspective on, and then, help the group see what their mindset is. And it doesn't have to be the whole team either. Maybe if you can't get Joe or Sally, either in role play or just get one person from the team to represent it.
Thank you.
Sure. What other questions you have?
I have my doubts around rewards and recognition.
On rewards, okay, tell me.
In what context, like how would you explain that being over there? Like, what? I understand we need information to achieve goals. I understand we need resources. I understand we need intel, so education, consultation. How does rewards come into the picture over there? Rewards or recognition?
Yeah, so some examples I've seen is maybe that the company will, recognize the most innovative team. Or maybe they will give, reward points or dollars to cross-functional partners when they work well together. So it doesn't necessarily have to be like you're giving someone a President's Club trip, right?
Yeah.
But, and I don't know if they have this at NYU, I haven't received any, but a lot of organizations will give like different points where then you can go to like a company internet and buy different things. Maybe that's a way to incentivize your partners and say, thank you.
Yeah. So my doubts are around when I'm thinking of rewards or recognition. And this definitely differs from industry to industry. I understand that. But more or less, I have noticed that when it comes down to rewards and recognition, it's more like a fame game than actually rewarding the real hard work. And that is a little messed up also in areas where you cannot quantify results. So sales is very easy. Like you can quantify results. How many projects did you get? What business did you bring? What profit did you earn? But there are teams that do not have quantifiable metrics. They have qualitative metrics. And I have seen in those cases, especially where favorism takes the front seat. And it's more about not how much work you're doing, but it's more about the decision of the person, how much work they wish to see of which person. Am I making sense of what I'm putting things?
It's perception, not reality. So
Yeah.
I think it depends on the company. So this is just examples of support areas. So you're saying that rewards and recognition aren't a motivator. Okay, then don't use it. What I would challenge you to think is, what could you do to make it a motivator, right? Is it once a month you bring, it's just the team. The team votes on the partner that's been like made the biggest impact on the team. And maybe they get to have, spring for a pizza lunch. I'm making it very minor, depending upon the budget. Or is there something bigger you want to make a reward and recognition about? So I would think about what's the cultural context in the organization and what's going to motivate your partners or even your team members. The gentleman behind you is kind of smiling. I can see he has a thought.
So along those lines, it seems that rewards recognition falls at the end. It's announced, and then at the end of the project or the deliverable, or whatever it is, it's given. And I wonder if there's a case where some type of recognition or encouragement, which I think is what you used, could be given along the way.
100%. This is just an example. This is ideally done, up front, right? You got your compelling purpose, your plan of attack of your priorities, your learning. What kind of rewards and recognition do you need along the way? If you're making these certain KPIs, for example, or if you want to say OKRs, whatever acronym you want, how can you make it along the way so people feel like they're meeting these different milestones? Was there something in mind that you had based on your work experience?
No, I'm thinking of large like research papers where you're pulling from different teams that are working on it. So I work with one of the environmental law centers on campus. And so we have legal teams, communications, designers, etc. and everyone's collaborating at different stages or at the same stages, depending. And it takes a few months to just like get something out. So, you know, for us, what I found is that having more like encouragement and really understanding like how to encourage people along the way. When you still have your own things to do, and then you have this massive project, and trying to figure out a way to keep the morale going as you're working on something, as opposed to saying, well, at the end of it, we're gonna have something.
I wonder if there's certain portions of the research project that need to be submitted, that you could have a, you know, celebration around or recognize or something like that. I mean, back to our friend over here that was talking about the horrible group projects. One thing I do in my class is I have the students present a portion of the project so I can make sure that they're actually working on it and I can inspect how they're working together. Because I've been in those horrible group projects as a student where no one's pulling their weight, and I try to mitigate that to the best of my ability. So how can you make it incentivize it? What other questions do you have? Anything online? Okay, I keep forgetting that I told myself not to say that. So when you think about the 6 conditions of team effectiveness, the must-haves, the enablers, those come into play to then allow your team to be effective, right? And some of the exercises that I have here will help you to think about, well, maybe we're falling short in one of these areas. Maybe we don't have a compelling purpose. Maybe we don't have team norms. And what can we do to put that together? Here's just a couple of exercises of ways you can overcome that. The group of SVPs and UPs that I talked about before, they're off to the races now. And the reason why is that they're working together. They understand how their team is interconnected, right? And how their success is dependent upon the success of each other. They have team norms. They know how they're going to communicate with each other. And now they can be productive and, you know, enjoy working together. So I'm curious, what's your biggest takeaway? What are you willing to try? Is there anything you're willing to be brave enough to admit that you're going to try coming out of this? Yes, David.
Yeah, I will urge CEO to do that. This team exists too. That the purpose things. I think this really necessary to work for that not big company. It's like 50 people, not too much people. It's easy to get everybody to on ground a retreat. Maybe a good idea to sit together to figure out who is who and who is doing what. Then maybe find myself a team work with. I really need somebody help, but I haven't find somebody in the company that can work with. So that's something I will try.
Okay, wonderful. Wonderful. And it doesn't have to be a retreat. A retreat is great, but you can also do it in a team meeting. Or
Yeah, team meeting is fine.
2 hour, yeah, whatever you can do to make it happen. Our environmental friend, what are you thinking?
You know, I worked in the nonprofit sector for a long time in different industries, and what we've used there, I don't know if SMART goal
Okay.
setting, right? So-
Specific, measurable, action-oriented, results-driven, and time-bound. For you
Right.
folks that for sure.
And so your framework, I saw similarities in there with it, not structured the same way, obviously, but I'm weighing my options as to see which framework might like work better for a more research focused academic group of individuals. I don't know, maybe there's a way to blend some of these together. I feel like SMART framework is for specific, it's for individual goals, whereas this might be a little bit bigger picture.
Yeah, but I wonder for your research folks, the research paper, what is the outcome? You know, what is that compelling purpose that people can rally behind?
Right.
That's, I think, what's missing with the SMART goals is it's not, what does this mean? I'm sure you're not doing research just to do research.
Right.
Hopefully it's to like save the environment, or I'm making that up, but you know what I'm saying? Make dolphins happy. So, you know, I'm kidding. But how can you associate that and the fact that people want to take that extra effort and hit their milestones because they're reinforcing and moving towards that bigger purpose?
I think the other part that's missing from SMART goals that you touched on was the decision makers, because so often like we'll get the work done, but it won't make any progress because the person that sees the report isn't making any comment on it.
Mhm. Yeah, who's the decision maker? And that can be tough to really identify. And what's the time frame in which the decision needs to be made? So often we're in meetings and the decision making is not even there. Or it's unclear who it is. What else?
I think a takeaway for me is right people, that really, that hit me. We always talk about having diverse perspective in room, and we talk about having, as you give that example of like each representative from each team. But I think we miss the big piece of the ability to collaborate. We all can have great ideas, but we cannot implement something if we do not have the ability to come to a common ground or make things happen. And I think that piece about collaboration and intercultural competence is often neglected. So I think that would be something I would want to put in approach in practice. Right people. So I'll pause and I will think about how am I framing or how am I grouping people for certain decisions or projects.
Yeah, and then on the flip side, if someone's asking you to join a meeting and there's no agenda, you're not sure why you're there, be tentative,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
find out.
Yeah.
So this side has actions and they've been very vulnerable. I'm curious, is anybody on this side doing anything after this session? You're going home eating pizza. No, you don't have to speak up if you don't want to. Nobody? Anyone online? Oh, I keep saying that. I'm so used to like being interactive and forgetting it's a webinar. Well, that's all I had for you today. What questions do you have?
We have a next session. right?
So we're gonna have the next session?
Yeah.
Well, Robin is on the phone, on the line here. So Robin, did you hear that? People want to hear me talk. You can help me
I
schedule.
absolutely heard that and we'll arrange it.
Thank you. And I didn't pay him to say that. All right, well, next Thursday, there is another being held by my counterpart, Terry Khan, he's another adjunct, talking about leadership in changing times with Elizabeth Nieto from Spotify. So I'll let David scan that. Encourage you to go there. And then there also will be a survey that goes out. We do look at the surveys, and so encourage you to provide feedback. And then you can find me online. Here's a QRC code and look forward to staying in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.